Hello and welcome back to AuDHD and Some. Today I'm joined by Arky Jones, creator of the PersonalityPeek, a platform focused on helping people better understand themselves through personality insights, self-awareness and personal growth. Arky has always been fascinated by what makes people tick, why one person stays calm under pressure and why another spirals, why we repeat patterns even though when we're not helping ourselves, and how understanding ourselves can often help us become more intentional about who we're becoming. His work brings together personality, self-awareness, stoic wisdom, and personal development, with the belief that the better we understand ourselves, the better equipped we are to understand our reactions, relationships, habits, and choices. And I think that so much we're going to be able to unpack here today is so relevant to us as a community, because I've been doing some serious self-work on myself over the last decade. So it's something I'm very much interested in. So, Arky, welcome to AuDHD and Then Some, and it's great to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so glad. Please, for anyone that hasn't had the privilege to meet you or come across you, who is Arky?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's one thing I will say that Arky myself there is no fixed point. There is no definition. There is the beginning when we are born, the alpha, and then the omega, the end, and then life happens in between that. And so I think a better question, I'm sorry, Ellie, would be, who am I right now and what's
Yeah,
brought me to
I
this
get that
point? Yeah, yeah,
100%.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
I've been as especially as like I'm neurodivergent. So as throughout my life, I've been many a person, specifically with masking and stuff like that. So I completely understand that. So what point are you at right now, and what are you
y-
doing? Like
yeah.
what's brought you here today?
Yeah, so absolutely. So fundamentally, I have always though been intrigued with the question of what makes us us. And maybe when I was a bit younger, I would allow external forces to have agency over myself. So I might be in a peer group and go along with the group, even though it might not have been within exactly what I wanted to do. Or I may have done things like, I mean, a good example is I used to always say to myself, I'll always be there for anyone, no matter what. And this is a long time ago, but I'm just trying to give you a track. And what I realized is if you're always available, if you're always someone that's always there, then that becomes the normal. That becomes taken for granted. It's not seen as special. It's not a gift. It's just expected.
Yeah.
So once I started seeing these patterns over my life, and then I had kids when I was 22. My first one was born, and that kind of started to change my loci of control into what I needed to be accountable for. But not only that, it then started showing signs in my life, like things weren't as good as they could be. So one of the best examples I've given before, Ellie, is my kids brought me a book when the oldest one was about 6. Probably their mum bought it, you know what I mean? But
Yeah, yeah.
and it was for my birthday, and I had a lukewarm glass of water next to the bed and 2 Panadol and 2 Nurofen, and basically shooed them away because I had a hangover, and then went back to sleep. And then this
Yeah.
this book was on the end of my bed when I woke up, and I felt like, the proverbial shit.
Yeah,
And
100%.
so I opened the book, and it
I've been
was
that parent, so I know.
yeah. And so this book was basically Meditations, which is a Stoic book, and from there I kind of realized, like, okay, what is within my control and what can I do, and then do that well, and what is outside of my control and I cannot possibly influence, and if so, I must let that go. And so I guess to answer the question, who am I try to be the person who takes maximal responsibility for the things that are within their control, and completely let go of things that is not within their control, and take no responsibility if I have no influence on it.
Yeah, that's probably that's a good place to be, actually. I think but that takes a lot of work to realize that you can't control the uncontrollable. I think that takes a lot of inner work and a lot of mistakes for you to be able to get there. I also had my children very young. They're now in their 20s. So I've gone through that
Yeah.
growing up period with them, where I've had hangovers and and beat myself, and I still beat myself up about it now. We've made many mistakes, but I'm now at that stage at 40 where I'm like, okay, I can't control things. So I think it's a really good method of self-understanding. And I think with you, I think the thing that you're doing, it really helps people do that self-work and have self-understanding. And I don't think we get very far without self-understanding. It's only when I started understanding myself that my life started to make sense and it become much clearer. And I think things like, so you've got a personality test, and I find things like that fascinating. So I took a personality test a couple of years ago, and I didn't make, but I told all my adult children to take it as well. And because I kind of knew which one was going to have the same personality as me and which ones would have the same personality as each other. It's that the INFJ
Yeah.
personality. I'm sure you've
Yeah, that's
researched a lot of different.
Myers-Briggs. So that's the Myers-Briggs, yeah, and then there's modified versions, but it comes down to the Myers-Briggs. Yep.
Yeah, so I took that personality test, and since then I found that it quite fit me actually. But since then I kind of really interested in personality tests. So when I fell upon you, I was like, oh, that's really cool. So what made you do this personality test? And how do you even think of questions? So if I'm going to be completely honest, I found the personality test really hard to take, your one and the other guy's one, because I literalize everything. So I have to think of an equation. So in the personality test, it would ask me questions. And same with when I went to my autism test, I would have to be like, well, if I'm masking and I'm around a certain set of people, then my answer would be this.
Yeah.
And, and then if I was in this mood, that was the only thing I find really hard to answer out about personality tests. So on some days I would have been on one end of the scale and the others, and then I tried to think about my authentic self, and I kind of couldn't. I struggled with some of the questions only for that, and that's what I wanted to ask you as well. Is that a thing for people? Are people struggling with some of them for them reasons?
Yeah, so interestingly, if you look at most personality tests, they may not make it as clear. One reason I chose to give a percentage on my scale was to
Yours
let
is
people
so good because it's a
to
spectrum.
to
And
be a
as an
spectrum, yeah.
autistic person, the spectrum is, that was what made it so much easier than normal personality tests for me.
And so that was something I developed for exactly the same reason, Ellie. So what you've just said, I want to be absolutely clear that I don't think that these tests should ever define you. And one problem,
Yeah.
the smaller the pool of answers you get, the broader that they're able to make them. And so what that means is, let's say that you got INTJ or whatever on the other test. Did you say INFJ? Was that yours?
No, I got one that was very much similar to the one that your test gave me today,
Yeah.
actually. And the one that your test gave me, it made, I wasn't sure what answer I'd get, because I suppose if you asked me the questions on a different day where I don't know myself, like the masking thing very well, I would have. But actually, the answer that it came up with, the soother, which is, I couldn't have thought of a better one to describe me, to be honest. Everything that was written about me made sense. So I was like, wow, like he's onto something. And I think when I took the other personality test, it came up with I think it was like the not intermediate, I can't remember. It was someone that is protective of people. So it was something as well that very much made sense.
So yeah, the idea was to, because of your concerns, was to make it so by using 6 dimensions, that gives you potential six codes. So when you get a 4-dimensional quiz would have 4 letters, a 5-dimensional quiz 5 letters, 6-dimensional quiz 6 letters. The problem is it's to the power of 2. So every time you add 1 dimension. So let's say with my test, you've got a possible of 64 answers. Yeah. If you add 1 dimension, the next goes to 128. So it's exponential growth. So 6, I felt, was the balance. But to come back to your first point, yes, I absolutely agree. And that's one thing that I've said, that when you take PersonalityPeek, the Core 64, or any test, try to see it as a mirror, as a snapshot in time of where you are right at that moment and what headspace you're in right at that moment.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I was really overthinking it. I was like, but I would have done this in the past. And I've never been able to ask people this about personality tests. So I was like, this is the perfect time for me to ask you. Is that is that a neurodivergent thing, or is that a people thing? You know, that they find it hard to answer these questions.
So it is interesting. So me and my team have had a lot of debates about, like, should we allow people to skip questions or not? Because a lot of the other quizzes will allow people to skip questions, but each one of these was curated in a way that it does add value on its own merit. So each question shows a different dimension of that sub-dimension. So it adds value. So in terms of your question of, is it a neurodivergent thing? Is it not? I think that again, the spectrum of humanity, some people will just take it and be like, bup, 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 you know, done in a couple of minutes.
Some people like that.
Yeah.
Wow.
The time some people take it is minutes. Some people spend 20 minutes on it. And initially we had 7 questions per dimension, but we refined it to 5 because some people were giving us feedback. It was just taking that little bit too much time.
Yeah.
So
it was a perfect length. So the length was enough to keep me with it, and the questions were very valid. And it must have been worthwhile, because even though I was struggling with answering it, it came out with something that completely suited me 100%. So I definitely think that there's something in it. How do you even go about making something like that?
Well, it's a bit of a long story. So you know, like the old ancient stories, like Bible stories, Brothers Grimm, you know, just the short fables that we've been told over the years from like ancient Greece, ancient Rome. I went through a phase where I would read those stories and then I would retell them. And I noticed in those stories across different cultures that there were certain archetypes that kept showing up. There were certain themes in those stories that kept showing up, like the hero story, the villain story, the love story, the anger, and kind of that the righteous or and sometimes cruel, sometimes luck. But what I realized is that part of us is exactly the same as those people from thousands of years ago. And so therefore I was like, okay, well, how can I put this in a pattern that people can relate to? And you could say, well, look at the other quizzes and that's how they did. But I just didn't like the system. I did. And the other one that got me was I went to this corporate event about 20 years ago. And I hadn't started this project, but then I started this about 10 years ago after I'd written another one of my books. And they asked me what color was I in relation to certain things. So they had in each corner of the room, they had yellow, blue, red, and green. And you had to go to the corner that the words that the lady said made you feel. And I said to the host, I said, I'm really sorry. I don't think in colors. So I don't really understand what green feels. I don't understand what red feels. To me, red is just red. It means stop at a stoplight and Liverpool wear a red shirt. You know what I mean? It doesn't make me elicit a feeling in me.
Red always makes me think Liverpool.
And she got angry with me. And I was like, I thought this is a personality test where there is no right answers. And when I say angry, irritated. And at that point I was like, okay, so what went on there? Because I still don't understand what a blue. I can understand the rationale. I understand that, like, you know, the diff. They can
make you feel cold and red angry. I'm not sure, but yeah.
Some. Let's just say that. I understand the principle behind it, but I just couldn't relate to it. So there was a few events in life that led me to it, but ultimately, I wanted to know for myself. Are we really that much of a pattern that you can, like, how is it done? And then what I realized is that common things commonly happen. So if you track enough human behavior over enough time, certain behaviors and certain responses will elicit certain actions. And so as someone who was always aware that the spoken word has value, but also I have a million thoughts a day in my head, and if I acted on them all, I would be in jail basically, because most of them are crazy, and so therefore it was like, okay, so actions have consequences, and therefore, and what people do, how they act, is how they interface with the world, and so let's map that onto what I built. And then it just took a long time to gather the data points, build the archetypes up. And then when I first took the quiz, I got the free thinker. I was absolutely thrilled because I was bricking it.
It might not work. You thought, what if I take the test my own test and I get something that is, that's what I thought today. I thought,
Yeah.
right, I'm going to take his test this morning. So I sat there this morning and took it and I thought, oh my God, what if it comes up with something that's completely relevant and I have to
Yeah.
go and tell this man that his test didn't work for me. But even though I struggled to answer the questions, it still came up with what I would have thought it would have come up with.
Yeah, it's basically just mapping of human traits over time. And then
Yeah.
if you're honest with yourself, you get it. But I think one thing you mentioned earlier, I just want to come back to quickly, is the way to take this test is, like in a mirror, I might go to the mirror in the morning and I might check the grays in my beards. I might check my eyebrows aren't too long. I might put my sunscreen on. I might make sure there's no toothpaste around the face. You know what I mean? But as soon as I walk away from that mirror, I'm no longer the self that looked in the mirror. I could go and have some beans on toast and get a bit of sauce in my beard and then go out and not know about it. So a personality test is a snapshot in time of where you are right at that moment. See it as a mirror. And what I've aimed to do is provide people with basically a map, but it's a map that they can go any direction on. What it does require, a personality test in itself will only show you where you are right now. It won't show you a direction, and it should not define you, because what you should do with it is say, okay, let's use this as a tool. So the same way a screwdriver screws a screw, this test will be used as a tool. And I will look at the areas I do well, look at the areas I could strengthen, and then decide where I want to put my attention, because your attention is the most precious resource in the world. And where you put that attention is the direction you will go in. Or you could look at it and think it's a pile of nonsense. There's no use to me. I'm already the perfect species.
Yeah. And I don't want to do any self-work. Yeah. The points that it gave me were very, which is what you said just now. You said about it gives you some points that you can reflect on, and I felt they were very valid. It also gives you some good points. So it says to you, these are good things you support without absorbing, and stay steady without disappearing, make your emotion, it gives some really valid points. It helps out. I think it's really good, and I'm not someone that would say that if I thought it was rubbish I would have said it. It didn't work for me. That's why I was quite worried about doing it this morning. I thought, oh, I'm just gonna have to go and tell him if it came out with the fact that I'm a brute or something, I'm gonna have to go and say it to him. But it really depicted me. So I think it's really interesting for people to take, because I think you might, if you get through the questions, you might learn something, about yourself, and also how to improve that. Because being a soother isn't always a good thing for oneself. Sometimes you're a soother to your own detriment. And and it subtly said, some things that I can help to work on that. So it was very valid. Who comes up with this stuff? Do you sign off on everything, or do you have anyone to help you with any psychological, who makes the points? And actually, I wanted to know, how many points are there? So I'm the soother. How many other options are there? I'm sure you know.
Yeah, no, of course. So, answer the first question is, I mapped out the entire thing over about a decade, and then I used a team of about 8 people to pull it together. And then as the technology's moved up, we've used technology to help map as well across the multiple dimensions to make sure there's no crossovers. So it's fundamentally common traits commonly, and then expand them out, linked to the traits. And then there's a potential of 64 total outcomes with this test. And that's
there's a lot.
6 to the power of 2.
64 outcomes, I got the one that fit me quite well.
Yeah, the idea the idea with PersonalityPeek is to make it as narrow as possible, where it is still useful and highly relatable. So my mission was, I want this to be as narrow as possible, but so people can really relate to it, but give enough that they can take areas of strength and areas of weakness. And I'll give you my weakness. So on my one, the free thinker, it suggested that, and I actually didn't see this, it suggested that I always like to be the first one, like rapid ideas. If there's a meeting, I can often see the problem. And I always saw that as my superpower, yeah. But when I read it cold back to me, I was like, hang on a minute, am I the dickhead?
Does that mean you're controlling?
Exactly.
That's
So
how, yeah, do you see what
yeah,
I mean? You can
yeah.
see it in from another perspective. So,
Hmm.
you might think that that's a good thing, and I might think that's a good thing, because when I was going through the test, and it kept asking, like, "Oh, do you like to?" I felt like a right prat, because it looked like I had no opinion on anything. Which yours must have been different, because you were putting it like you like to, sign off on things, and you like to give your point of view. And mine just, so I get that 100%. Do you think? I thought you was gonna say that there was like 8 personality types, and I thought, even then, I would be quite impressed that it got me down to quite good, but I didn't know you were gonna say like 64.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm quite impressed by that, and it takes a lot for me to be quite impressed. So that's not bad. I'm very interested.
Interestingly, though, Ellie, you just
Yeah,
used the word eight. So within that, there is what we call squads, and
yeah.
so that 64, there is a squad of eight where they have similarities within that squad.
Okay.
They are distinct self, but we
Yeah,
do acknowledge that there is like a loose, sorry, a very niche Pacific, and then there's a
yeah.
looser group, and we call them squads. And so it doesn't necessarily mean you'll get along with people in that squad or not. But what it does give, one of the ideas with this is, if people were to take it, they actually can see each other's strengths and weaknesses. And so, in answer to what I did because of this test, I now, unless I'm called upon to speak in a meeting, I now make sure I'm the last to speak. And do you know what that's done? I actually end up with more data points, so I'm able to actually make a decision even better, or contribute even more. And then every now and again, by the time it gets to the fourth person, they've made such a good point. We're like, okay, let's just wrap this up, because
Yeah.
that's exactly what we
I think
needed.
it's amazing for self-awareness. I think, it's, you've even say there, what I really want to do is, I've got a group of like 50,000 in my community, right? So what they're quite an active group. What I want to throw out to them later is, I want to get them to take the test, because in my mind, I feel like, even though I say, once you meet one neurodivergent person, you've met one neurodivergent person, we're all different. It's like people from the same culture, they're not all the same, right?
Yeah.
But I see a lot of similarities between me and other people in the community. We've got the same quirks, we've had a lot of the same experiences. I'm really interested, and I know a lot of people from my community will take it. I'm really interested to see if a lot of us come out with the same type.
I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. I think there's a diversity in there because it's so niche. I think the squads might be interesting,
Yeah.
as to the same squads, but I think there'll be diversity within the squads because it's set up in such a way to capture really fine nuance. And that was one of my things, because I know that any given day that the decisions we make can change our entire life. If we
Yeah.
make bad decisions or good decisions. The other thing I've never liked is, I've never liked to be told, oh, you're just that, or you're just this. So
Yeah.
what I wanted to do with this particular quiz was to make it very clear that this is who you are right now at this moment in time. And in fact, for free, if you do log in, you can track your results on a timeline over time, and there's no cost for that either. That's included in the base package. And the reason for that is, what I'd love people to do is, after they take the quiz, is to look at things where they want to improve or change, and then revisit it in 2 to 3 months' time,
And
and
see
then
if it
ask
made
those
a difference.
and ask those questions. The idea is, ultimately, is to let people know that they are, and I don't mean to be too dramatic, but they are more wonderful and more unique, and the chance of them existing is so unbelievably low, that they have such worth, but also they have a self, and that self is something that they can define, and no one should be telling them who they are. And what that does is, it empowers them to know that where they put their attention is the direction they will go in. And as I said earlier, attention is the most valuable resource that we have.
It's so true. As someone that's done a lot of self work, over the last decade, I've had to. Otherwise, I would be in a completely different situation to what I am now. Um, these things are really fascinating, and I urge everyone to take the test or something similar, because I do feel like oh, it's given me a wealth of knowledge about myself. If you're on that self-exploration journey, which I feel a lot of people in my community are, they're late diagnosed with ADHD, late diagnosed with autism, they've been masking all their life and they want to kind of find out about themselves. They're on that journey. And I would definitely urge, even if you think, oh, it's a load of crap, it's not going to
Mm,
define me
mm,
or depict me,
yeah.
I would urge everyone to take it, just even as a little experiment, because it can't do you any harm. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised by what you find out. So I definitely think, it's free, isn't it? And,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
might
I
as well
mean, of
give it a
course, there
bash.
are there are products you can purchase on there, but the free results I aim to give you so you get value from those free results. And
So
if you,
that's the thing as well. I was shocked by it. Is so I thought. So he's gonna have set it up. So I'm gonna have to give him my email address before he gives me my personality type. I thought that's how it's gonna work. I know it. But you gave me my personality type. I didn't even have to give you anything.
no, no,
And so that was so there's no commitment to just find out your personality type.
hmm hmm
So I urge everyone to completely take that
yeah, that
opportunity.
it's one of my bugbears, Ellie. I can't stand it when when you go through a process and it's not transparent. There's going to need an email or a payment at
Yeah.
the end. And so I thought,
That's
you know
what I
what?
thought. I thought,
Let's just make
you're a
this as
normal
clear
guy.
as I
That's what's going
can.
to happen.
Yeah. And the truth is, it's a passion project for me. I've done it because I thoroughly enjoy it. I've done it
Yeah.
because I can see myself growing through it. And fundamentally, it's just an absolute pleasure to get this knowledge, and it frees you. It
That is,
frees you. I mean, I don't, just to slightly change, just to slightly do this. Like, one of my fundamental beliefs is that the beginning of time, so before time began, infinite potential existed. So there was infinite potential. And some might call that God, some might call that divinity. So it doesn't matter what you call it. It was infinite potential. And then it brought light. So the universe starts to expand, and then suns form, and planet, blah, 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 blah. And we come all the way to the present day. But you know there's two things in that story. One is the universe itself is in a constant state of change, as are we, and we
as
are part of the
always.
universe. And two, where you shine light, where you put light, is the direction you look. And so I often just try to shine a light on myself, on my blind spots, on areas I could be doing better. And so if you did nothing else, if you accept that you continuously change, and you accept that where you put your attention, which is shining a light on it, is the
Is that a
direction
little
you
bit
will
like
go.
manifestation? I find this fascinating. Is that a little bit like manifestation? Because that where you shine your light is where you does that relate to you? Do you know what I mean?
I do. So what I would say is that I do not like people that say, like, oh, if you take this course, then you go to the shops and then you'll meet a millionaire sponsor that will
Yeah, I hate.
sponsor you to be the best ballerina.
Do
So
you know
I
what? It
don't
makes
like
me so
that.
angry because I know a lot of vulnerable people, and just not even vulnerable people that would like really sign up to that, and that
Yeah.
really upsets me.
So, but I do genuinely believe I believe spoken word has meaning. I believe
Yeah.
our actions have consequences, and I believe that where we put our attention and what we put our attention on is the direction we will move in. And so what I try to do is I try to put my attention into the direction I would like to walk in, and I put it on people I like to be around. One thing as well is that I work very hard, that even if others try to define me, that I don't allow that to affect me, because I think agency and self-agency is absolutely critical to a rich life, but self-agency does involve asking yourself the hard questions as well.
Yeah. This I just find it I find it fascinating. It's really amazing. Another question that I wanted to ask you was I thought about it earlier when you was talking about from the beginning of time there's been types of people and etc. Do you think we are born with our personality innately in us, or certain aspects of it? Of course, our trauma, our experiences and everything shapes us. Do you think if we didn't go through them, we would all have a similar type of personality?
No. So I do definitely make two distinctions here. So I personally believe we have a soul. And I believe that
Yeah, me too.
soul is gifted from the universe or from heaven or from whatever
Yeah,
you
for
want to
me,
call
for
it.
God.
Yeah.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, from God. And that is something that has always been there and always will be there. And it contains the essence of where we are. But I believe personality is an interface that the body and the mind use to navigate the world. And I believe it's malleable. But of course, it is 100% influenced by our childhood, our adolescence, our teen years, and the actions we do now. But there's what, let me give you one small example, okay, of where you could change your personality immediately. So let's say that you're in a job that you don't like, okay? You're doing something you don't particularly like, okay? If you can find just one thing in that job that gives you some joy and you do that really, really well, you will start seeing the whole thing differently. I think to answer your question, I think there is a soul and I think there's personality, and I think personality is influenced by the body and mind, but I think it modifies throughout our entire life. But there
Yeah.
is probably some core traits that make it. So let's
Because
say,
I feel
yeah,
like in my soul, so this is what I find this stuff really, this is my thing, right? So I find in my soul innately, I feel like I was born as a, let's just say, a soother. That's what your
mm,
personality
mm.
test gave us. But I also feel like experiences in my life has shaped me to become a soother. I do have a little bit of a lack of boundaries because of what's happened to me over my life. I do think that some ways have shaped me to be a soother, but I have felt like I've always probably destined to be a soother
Mm.
because it's innately in me.
Yeah, and I think that this is where I try to separate the soul and the personality, because the personality is the interface. The soul is you at the core, rawest self.
Yeah.
It's the gift you were bestowed upon conception, and so therefore, in answer to that, I think that both are true, and I think that we're talking across things. So I think the soul is the essence of you. And the goodness and the generosity, and I think that the lived experience is what shapes your personality and the way you interface with the world. But I think even like if you look at some of history's worst horrors, there's always been good people that rise up from that. So it isn't all environmental. That, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Otherwise, if we were back in like Genghis Khan, everyone would have just been a murderer, or the Vikings, or whatever. But it wasn't that way. And I think also it goes deeper than that. I think that we have a shared memory. So on top of the soul, I think genetically we have a shared memory. So if you go back 300 million years, or yeah, let's just say 300,000 years, okay, sorry. And we used to live in small tribes of about 100 to 150 people. And each person within that tribe had a role. And that role was, one, it was bestowed upon them, but two, there was traits within that person that would help them be suited to do that role. So some people might be a nurturer, they might look after the
So like
babies.
hunter gatherer and
Yeah,
etc.
yeah,
I've got
hunter
an
gatherer.
obsession with Homo sapiens and all that kind of thing. Like, so this is I love this. So yeah, carry on.
Yeah, so that's where it comes from. In kind of this shared living memory that is passed down ancestrally.
Yeah.
So that there is definitely a genetic component, but also I think, Ellie, that your personality might be one of such willing to self-sacrifice for the family, for others, people that you love and you want to, and you are happy to carry that load because that is a load that you see, it's a burden that you feel worth is bearing. But I also think that if the wolves were to come in the night to take the children away, either you or the wolves are going to be dead. You're not going to let them take
Yeah.
them. And so what I'm trying to say is that there is within all of us there is a spectrum, but the core self is definitely is part of that. But I think our experiences will choose the way we interface with the world. Does that
Yeah,
make
a hundred
sense?
percent.
Okay.
Because at different points in my life, like, I've had a problem with alcohol and drugs at one point in my life when I was a lot younger. I've been sober 10 years now, but you know, at that time I was still innately the same person. But I feel like life had desensitized me a lot. My moral compass had kind of changed. So I do feel like we we are affected. We are still the core at that,
Mm,
I was still me and I still had that innate thing, but I did become desensitized at some points and drift from what I think my core really hold valuable. So I actually think that that's completely valid. So
yeah, and
yeah, thank you.
that's my true belief.
What got you in, like, what was you interested in as a child? To what kind of qualification or anything do you need to get you to where you've been? Like, it can anyone, I think it's very multifaceted. So you've made a website and and that's the technical thing. But obviously you're interested in, the deeper things in life, what's made this up? What's made you into this person?
Look, I won't go into too specifics, but I spent a lot of time in difficult countries where
Yeah.
things are not taken for granted and life is very cheap. And so what I realized in when I could see such misery, that we think things are the way they are in the West because that's all we've ever known. And I realized that other human beings don't live that way. But there was also a deep admiration in me of what people could go through and what they could survive. And I remember one time this girl had no money and she paid this guy in peanuts because that's all she had. But to him, even though he'd give her something far more valuable than the peanuts, he'd removed a stone from her kidneys for no charge. That peanuts to him was worth more than all the money in the world because that was all she could give, and she gave it. And so in that moment, there was such beauty, but it was
Yeah.
also so sad. But to them, she wasn't sad. She was happy and he was happy. And I've seen that across time, across suffering, across places. And when you see that, you realize that the world that we think we know only exists because of the framework we live within. And so therefore that made me realize that this tapestry of humanity is so rich that if I could map it, ultimately I could understand myself better and then hopefully help others understand themselves better. But it was actually just because I'd witnessed things that were stuff that I didn't imagine I could witness. And then on the back end of that, I realized like my view of the world from the Western view is not necessarily what the world is like. And I felt
Yeah.
very lucky to be born where I was born.
Yeah,
But
it is a
also,
postcode.
yeah,
It's a postcode lottery. I
yeah.
sometimes say, we're very lucky to have been born where we've been born because it
Mm.
could be very different if we were born somewhere else. But I feel like for you to, I think a lot of people would see that peanut, situation. I don't want to just bring it down to a peanut. I'm going to call it,
Mm.
the peanut story. And I think a lot of people, of young men wouldn't notice the actual beauty and the fragility in that. They'd just think, oh, nice story, move on. See, when I think about that story will tinker on my mind for a while now, and
Mm.
and I'll see great wisdom in it and I'll see great sense in it. I feel like for you to pick up on the beauty in that story, you have to be a certain kind of person or gone through stuff. Sadly, I don't feel like everyone will pick up on such beauty in that story, and I find that really sad.
So if somebody is willing to give you all they have, then what more can one ask?
Yeah. But I think people just take so
Mm.
much for granted now. They
They
say
do.
like, "Oh, nice story." But when I hear something like that, it plays on my mind. Maybe it's something to do with my personality type, why I look so deeply into things like that. I,
Mm.
I don't know, but I think it's beautiful story. I think the world is a beautiful place. Um, but yeah, this that's amazing. Is there things that you can go from this, like, so from the personality type, and I'm not saying you're a wizard or you're going to be able to
Mm.
map my
Mm.
future or anything, but from seeing my personality type, is there I'm single, I'm always going to be single, I think it's my happy place, for the last 10 years, but say hypothetically, can you say what kind of person you would be best matched with, or what kind of friends that can you do that with personality types with taking a test like yours?
No.
No.
What I would say, so no, not like that. So the the key is to understand the imperfection in the world and understand that it's like the Oasis song, true perfection has to be
Yeah.
imperfect. Yeah. So
You give
therefore,
me that Oasis vibe. That's why I laugh.
so yeah, I do like them. I
Yeah,
like the verve as well, though.
I can see
Um,
it as well. Yeah,
so
it's a bittersweet symphony.
yeah, dude, that's one of my best. That's one of my best. So, in the fact that so to answer the question is that one must ask. Let's just take relationships, okay? Let's just take relationships as a rule. So one must ask themselves, what do they want? So what do you want from that relationship? And what would be good enough? Because the truth is that most of us, if we are dedicated, we are honest, we are loyal, and that we are willing to accept areas that could be improved, together, then what more do you want from a relationship? And me and my wife, we've been together since I was 20 years old, and I'm 44 now. And
Wow.
we always said that we none of us believe true love exists. But
Yeah,
what we do believe is that if two people work together
you
over
worked it.
time for a commonality, that there is a beauty in the sacrifice. And I think that's one thing where I'm saying, however, that doesn't mean being in a relationship or not is of any relevance. What is what genuinely brings you enough challenge and enough enough impetus that
Yeah,
makes you still want to get out of bed every day and do better. And if
yeah.
you're continuing to grow, like you've got your kids, Ellie, like what more could you really want?
Well,
And that's the
now
question.
I see that, many years ago I was searching and searching before I done that exploration, and now I realize, I've got everything that I absolutely could want. Years ago, I had my kids, but I was still searching for this missing thing. But actually, I realized it was actually inside of me, and doing the self work has made me realize that. But do you know your wife's personality type, and is it something that on paper would mesh with yours?
Yeah, so she got the steward, and the steward it fit her quite well in that
Yeah,
she's probably, I'm definitely more like the ideas guy, whereas she just keeps the ship straight and narrow. And I
yeah.
certainly know if I've not done my share of the ironing, God help me, or the
She'll sort
kitchen's
you
not
out.
clean enough. Yeah.
Yeah,
Very orderly as well. And so we've got that kind of yin and yang kind of style where you've got the chaos and then you've
yeah,
got the order, and
yeah.
that kind of complements
I've
each other
got that
quite
with my
well.
business partner. It's probably the closest thing to the relationship I have, and it's very important to have that yin and that yang to level you out. And you said your children adults now.
Yeah, university. Yeah.
And do you feel like, and I found it really interesting when my kids took the personality test. Do you feel like they would be a mixture of the both of you? Can you kind of guess which ones would have which personality tests?
Yeah, but I didn't ask them to take it because my boy probably wouldn't. Yeah, because my boy's too busy. He's just building a new car for the last like year or
Wow.
so, and my daughter, she could end up a little bit like, if it's not her, my life's gonna be hell.
Oh, they're your
She,
wife's kids. So the same with cleaning the kitchen. Maybe she's a steward. Yeah,
yeah, she's certainly she's definitely more flamboyant than the
yeah.
wife. So she's got somewhere in between. But no,
So
I'll
she might have a mix of the pair of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be interesting. It's a funny thing. I tend to with work. I do tend to keep it separate from them.
Yeah.
Just because it's been a project of mine. I do, even though they're adults now. I don't know. I can't fully explain it, to be honest.
No, my
And you've
dad is
made
like a really old-fashioned, like northerner guy, like proper old-fashioned. It's like you don't mix but work and family, and it clouds things. So yeah, right, I get that.
Yeah, I think that's what it is, because I hadn't, until you said it, then I hadn't even thought about it,
See,
and it's just
that's crazy to me. That would be the first thing like I would be asking everyone. Maybe it's a really personal thing. Like, do you think some people find it really personal as well? I'm quite open with stuff. You know,
Mm.
maybe people, if I ask them the results of their personality test, that might be something that you don't ask people.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, obviously, I want it to be shared, but I think anyone that takes it has their journey to take from it. I think the kitchen example is a fun one because I think like if you're the kind of person that walks past dirty dishes or you leave a full dishwasher for somebody else, you know, it speaks volumes about you and your ability to, you know, tolerate it. And I think one thing in life that I've tried to do is, what if I don't do this, who will this impact? And have I had a role in bringing it to this point? And so
Yeah.
where I've played a role, this wasn't always the way, but where I've played a role or where I've had impact, is I then try my very, very best to make sure that I mitigate my impact and do my share. But one of my favourite memories was, because you mentioned before, Ellie, that you didn't used to mind a drink. And one of my favourite memories is I'd been out and I'd one too many. And I was praying to the porcelain god, vomiting. And my wife came in and I looked up at her and I thought, the angels arrived.
Oh,
Yeah, she's come to save me. And you know what she said?
that's
Can
so
you?
lucky. She said clean the kitchen.
Yeah, no. She said, "Can you shut the f up?" And then slam the door. And then when the next morning when I spoke to her, she was like, "Well, if you're gonna go out drinking, son, then you're gonna pay the price."
Angels come in all shapes and sizes.
Yeah. Well, I never did it again.
Yeah, I'm so glad for you. You do feel a lot better without it. Oh, amazing. Honestly, what other directions have you been able to go in? So, you know, you've got the app, and I also want to speak about, because I actually didn't know, I really threw myself into researching the personality tests
Mm.
and stuff like that. So talk to me about your books. So you've got books as well.
Yeah, so after I read the Marcus Aurelius book, it's a Stoicism book. I decided I wanted to know more about it, and I like journaling. And so
Yeah.
one way I did that is I basically journaled about Stoicism for a while, and then my thoughts just became this book, and that applied Stoicism book that shares the
For anyone that
story.
doesn't know what Stoicism is, can you just give me a quick dictionary definition? Sorry.
Like, no, no,
No
okay,
pressure.
no pressure. So there's it's an interesting one. So, do you remember earlier at the beginning I mentioned about like control, what you can control, and letting go of what you can't control?
Yeah.
That's definitely one principle of it, and it's kind of like your judgment, using wisdom, using temperance, which is the way you interface with the world,
Yeah.
and fundamentally it doesn't. One thing I think, let's say what stoicism isn't, and then we'll come to what it is. So people think stoicism is like this wooden, I don't have any emotion, you know, I'm this kind of super like tough guy or whatever, and nothing bothers me. No, no, no. A stoic thinks to the deepest well, loves to the bottom of the heart, but only within what they can give. Because the ultimate aim is to understand what you actually have agency over, and doing that the very best you can, but letting go of anything you do not have agency control over. And
Yeah.
so ultimately what it comes down to is that if it is something that you can do, and it is up on you to do it, then you should. If it is something that is beyond your control, you must not worry about it. So, for example, the weather is a great one that English people talk about all the time, but it is truly
Oh,
beyond your
yes, we do.
control. And so
It's so easy
it's
for you to say that. Where are you right now?
yeah, it's sunny Australia.
Sunny
It's actually
Australia.
winter right now. It's winter at the minute though, hence I've got my jumper on.
Is it very cold?
It gets to like -4. We had ice on the road the other day. Yeah, it
I
doesn't.
actually didn't know that.
Yeah, it doesn't snow. It snows in the hills only. We generally don't get snow on the roads,
Yeah.
but we do get a bit of ice. Yeah, yeah.
I never knew it went that cold for some reason. That will be the rabbit hole that I'm down later. How cold does it get in Australia?
And when I first moved in, none of the houses had double glazing. So we moved in the winter, and all four of us ended up basically in this one room with this little oil-filled heater. They don't have central heating either.
Hibernating.
Just bloody freeze it. Yeah, yeah. I remember. I think it was my wife said to me like, "What the hell have you done to us?" And I was just like, "Yeah, I
Yeah.
know."
Because I thought Australia was meant to be warm.
Yeah, it's a big place, I think.
Yeah, I think
Where
that
we
that's
are,
a
it's cold as, like, it gets cold. It's not too bad,
yeah,
but
I
it's,
didn't think about that. That must be a massive misconception that Australia is just like I always expect everyone to be on the beach all the time.
yeah. I mean, you can go, but you end up a bit chilly.
Yeah, a bit frostbitey. So how many books have you got out then?
Um, I've got over 40 books, short story books. They're only about 10,000 words each. They were published about 10 years ago. I can't read. That was the ones I told you about. You know, when I rewrote the short stories into modern
Yeah.
context. Then I published Applied Stoicism. Don't Give Two Shits about 7 years ago. Don't Give Two
Yeah.
Shits is more of a it's kind of it's a cohesive book, but each section is an individual kind of self-help message, and it's interesting because I was ahead of the curve with social media on that book. I talked about the evils of it, doom scrolling, all that, and again, attention was attention and focus and time and then the other one that I was a bit ahead of the curve was, you know, the salt fat ratio in fat food.
Yeah.
I've got a whole section on the addictivity of fast food and how the game is rigged to keep us,
You
you
want
know.
to be careful that the government don't try and kill you, mate.
Oh God, don't say it.
You've obviously got some inside knowledge going on that no one wants shared.
No, yeah, but I've never. What I tell you, what I can't do, Ellie. I am the worst marketer in the universe. So I've never been able to like do much with it. You know what I mean? But I enjoy it very, very
no one
much.
really knows about it.
Yeah,
So you're safe.
probably safe. And then I
Might
wrote
want to
one
get
book.
some double glazing pretty quick.
Double glazing, bulletproof double glazing. Yeah. And then I wrote one called The Sydney Effect, which is just a dystopian novel that explores two people going through a very, very difficult time in Sydney in the near future. Yeah, and it just explores their journey through this city.
Love a bit of dystopia. Yeah, that. Is it all the same sort of genre? Do you like? Is there a lot of different genres? What kind of people were these books appeal to?
So the Stoicism book is, I would probably lean towards, it's definitely an introduction level to Stoicism. And it does share some of those stories. Like one of the opening stories is that one I told you with the kids with the Panadol and Nurofen, you know, with the hangover. And
Yeah.
that was how I discovered it. Don't Give Two Shits is pretty much for anyone. Because the beauty with it is you could read any chapter at any time, and
You can just flick through and
yeah.
yeah.
And each chapter is designed to be standalone, but also if you read it all in a linear fashion, it adds more value because there is crossover, but it doesn't have to be.
That's really good because
then
some
the-
people can't read in a linear fashion, especially, you know, some people with ADHD just want to pick up a bit and then put it down again. So that's
Yeah.
really good.
And then these short books, they were just me cutting my teeth, to be honest, in learning how to write, because I was a
Yeah.
product of the English comprehensive system and they never taught me grammar. So when I had
no
to
idea how to use grammar at all. I have learned a lot lately, but my kids used to be very horrified because, you know, I wouldn't know the difference between, you know, to and TOO, and I wouldn't know where to
yeah.
put. I don't know how to do any of this stuff.
Nah, we were never taught. And I'll be honest, I still don't know very
Yeah.
well. I know that sounds crazy. I have to go through manually. And then
Yeah.
when Grammarly was invented, that was basically the game changer for me when Grammarly came out. Because I don't think I published before the first versions of Grammarly came out because I wasn't confident enough. But I've actually got over 30 books written over the last 20 years.
Because of Grammarly.
But well, no, I've not published them because it's hard to get. I find I have writing and creation gives me absolute joy. It puts me in a state that I cannot put into words to explain to you how I feel. But editing
Better
and
than
then
when you saw when you saw that angel,
the angel.
your wife.
Oh, yeah, nah, she's all right. Yeah, she's got
No,
she's.
when you said you were drunk and you saw the angel appear.
Oh, yeah, in the toilet, yeah. I looked up and I swear there was a halo. I was like, I'm saved, and she went, shut the F up, and slammed the door. Yeah.
And English, you said to me before, English isn't even her first language, so she's
Nah.
learnt it pretty well.
Yeah. It's like her fourth language. I think she speaks 7. I can't keep up.
My God, and she still managed to tell you to shut the fuck up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, we love the steward. Oh, honestly, thank you so much for joining us. There's
Thank
so
you.
much to talk about, and like I could have gone in so many different areas because it's really something I'm interested in. What platform can what platform do you most use? Where can, if someone's like interested to find you, I'll share the links for the personality test quiz. I really am interested to see people's results. But where, what's your most used platform? Where can we find you?
Yeah, so to be honest, everything's on PersonalityPeek, P-E-E-K. So remember, guys, take a peek at your personality, and that's a grammar thing. It took me a while to figure it out. If you type P-E-A-K, I've got that domain, but it's not linked. But so you'll end up back with me. But P-E-E-K, and all the socials are on there, guys. I do have my Arky Jones LinkedIn, which is probably the one that's most, got most of my like specifics on, but fundamentally everything I'm channeling is towards the site, and is towards basically letting people have that insight into themselves. And I'm hoping by making it free, and just so you know, guys, if you sign up, of course, I'm going to try and sell you stuff, but the timeline and repeated tests is free, and at sign up there's no cost or no bank details or anything like that needed, so you can recurrently take the test there. And also, one other thing, if you do sign up, and this is an incentive to help people sign up, there is a thing called the dilemma quiz. So it takes your archetype and then it looks at how it's a slightly different setup to what you did, Ellie, but it then looks how you handle dilemmas. And it complements your archetype, because the archetype shows you. The dilemmas aims to show you how you deal with challenges that the world throws at you. And then both together, you end up with quite a nice, rounded internal and external of how you deal with things. And that again, that's free as well for the initial stuff. And then, of course, there's upsells. But it won't cost you.
Can you go into lots of different areas with this? Like, is there growth in it? So when I first started and I thought, okay, so it's a personality test, are you going to stop there? Or is there lots of things that you can go from with the personality test for you personally?
Oh, no, 100%, 100%. So for one, for every personality I've got a book for each personality. And then there's an overarching book called The 3-Way. I know the name's a bit silly, but it's not supposed to be.
I mean, you'll remember it.
You'll remember it. And what that means is that it gives 3 different ways to handle any given problem, and that is across the archetypes. And then you can get more specific into your archetype. And so the idea is that not every problem can be solved with stoicism. Not every problem can be solved with kind of with whatever you're doing right now. And then the 3rd way we call the peak way, which gives an algorithm, and it basically, the algorithm penultimate is keep or kill. So I won't spoil it all, but fundamentally it comes down to a keep or kill. So what I've tried to do is develop a framework. Not only can you see a snapshot of yourself, not only can you see a snapshot of how you interface with the world, how the world influences your decisions, but also what you can do with that information if you want to. But if nothing else, Ellie, what I want people to do is to see it this way, that take the quiz and ask, is there one thing in this that has given me some insight that I can do better? And if there is, there's nothing more than can be asked, because I guarantee you, most of us will spend more than 5 minutes staring at a TV. And so it's better to spend 10, 15 minutes here digesting. And last thing I'll say, because I'm going on a little bit, sorry, is
no, not at all.
I designed this to be that life is a game that we play. And I wanted this to feel like you're playing the game of life, but it about you. And I think that one thing I would advocate for everyone to do is never stop playing. See joy in the small things, and try to put that attention that you have, which, as I've said, is so precious, into things that genuinely build you up. And that can even be, guys, looking at a sparrow feeding its chicks in the back garden, because it is in those moments that is what nature is. And we've been so detached from it that we don't even know our arse from our elbow anymore. And
Yeah.
if you can get back to the beauty of a sparrow feeding its chicks, even to ducks with ducklings crossing the road, or look up at the stars at night and just admire that ball of gas burning 10 light years away or whatever the hell it is, and
Honestly,
be in the moment.
100%. Since, the last 10 years, I'd look at a rose and smell it and I'd start crying. Like, I've become like that person as well that just can see the absolute beauty, like in absolute everything. And, I always had that a little bit about me. I was quite an old soul even when I was a child. But I feel like since I found my way back to myself, it's definitely appreciation that I've found in the world again. Like the littlest things like about nature just fascinate me, and I'd lost that for a while. So I completely agree. I was going to ask you what your last words were, but I'm guessing
Yeah, that can be it.
it's that.
Yeah, that can be it.
Bittersweet symphony is life.
Don't get me started, it'll
Honestly.
start raining
Yeah.
if I get singing.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It was an absolute pleasure.
It was an absolute pleasure, actually. I was a little bit nervous, but I actually think it went very well.
But you thought I was going to be some crazy hillbilly.
I was a little bit nervous at first. But I'm going to press stop and say goodbye to my guests, and then I'm going to thank you. Thank you so much, guys, for listening.